To make a film, you need content, style, and suffering. If this part of the formula is minimal, you might be watching a Beckett play or reality TV. However, if this is minimal, you might be watching a minimalist film. When you make any film, this part is never minimal. If you're watching a minimalist film, you'll see people doing everyday, normal stuff. No explosions, no robots, yes, clipping toenails. The camera usually stays in the same place for a long time. Like for a really, really long time. Really long. You also might not know what's going on, the importance of what you're seeing, or why characters make certain choices. There are a few other hallmarks of minimalism, but generally it is a systematic reduction of stylistic elements. So a film is minimal if a director chooses mostly not to use cinematic language, avoiding the communication of ideas and story through camera movement, music, editing, robots, etc. But this lack of cinematic communication often conveys theme. But this is a paradox. How can someone speak by not speaking? It seems impossible. Let me try it. See, nothing happened. But it's very possible. In fact, the same set of minimalist tools can be used to convey opposite ideas and have opposite effects on the audience. South Korean director Sang-soo's reduction of stylistic elements suggests that people are stuck in temporal cycles, unable to escape their past or change their future, and he even seems to trap the audience within his films. Meanwhile, the 1988 film Christmas in August, directed by Jin-ho, suggests instead that the past can actually liberate you and your future, and instead provides the audience with a finite connection to the world of the film, which they can leave with a sense of resolution. But who is Hong, and how can he trap viewers? And how does Christmas in August not also trap them? Well, first, let's back up and look for a second at historical context to understand why these films were made. Before the 90s, the South Korean people were quite oppressed for quite a long time, and this influenced their media. South Korea's military government obligated filmmakers to, with their films, resist Japanese colonial culture, Western pop culture, and North Korean communism through systematic favoritism and censorship. Films, therefore, had to focus on the construction of South Korean national identity. Characters were not just people, but symbolic of national struggles. The 90s saw South Korea's first democratically elected president, which meant that, firstly, people no longer had to spend all their time trying to fix their government, and secondly, the government loosened their restrictions on film, which meant they could do and show more mundane stuff. No longer obligated to explore national time, South Korean cinema could devote itself to smaller, more personal cycles and tragedies. So let's look more specifically at how our chosen directors, Hong and Her, portray this personal time. And let's start by looking at these films' use of photos to observe their general concepts of time before we move to how these films express this relationship specifically through minimalist elements and how they affect the audience. Film critic and theorist André Bazin noted that photographs provide a special form of connection to their viewers, writing that the objective nature of photography confers on it a quality of credibility absent from all other picture-making. Basically, a picture of you doing a sweet, sweet kickflip is naturally going to impress all your friends and grandchildren much more than a drawing of it, because this seems fake, but this does not. Even if this one meant that you actually did a rad kickflip 500 times for Leonardo da Vinci to draw it for you, Da Vinci might have faked it. But the camera doesn't naturally lie, it just captures exactly what it sees. To quote the wise words of the internet, pics or it didn't happen. So looking at a photo connects us to the past moment it portrays, the pure awe of kickflippery, for instance. Given the way Hong's characters interact with photos, they don't want this connection to the past. Evidence in Hong's earliest film, The Day a Pig Fell in the Well, suggests that the context here is that Bo-kyung and Dong-woo had this child together and were happy. Then the child died and they were not. All these family photos do is remind them of what they once had and how everything is now awful in comparison. Their past haunts their present, and their coping strategies are not super effective. Meanwhile, the context of this photo from On the Occasion of Remembering the Turning Gate is that Kyung-soo is trying to escape Myung-suk, with whom he had an affair. All he wants to do is cut contact and move on.
정말 됐거든요. 얘기할 게 좀 있어서 그러니까.
As the movie plays out, this attempted escape turns out to not have really worked. Though he escapes Myung-suk herself, he seems to repeat the relationship he had with her with another woman, and thus he doesn't actually really leave the relationship. In both cases, the photos seem to trap the characters in their past. Meanwhile, in Christmas in August, photos are like a crazy powerful D&D character, with the abilities to heal both the past and the future. Through photos, characters feel okay about past heartbreak and impending death. So in Hong, the past comes back to haunt the present and the future, over and over and over, creating cycles. But in Christmas in August, the past is linear, slipping away from you. And before you know it, the future is right here, right now, and the past is already fading.
내 기억 속의 무수한 사진들처럼 사랑도 언젠가 추억으로 그친다는 것을 난 알고 있었습니다.
Bazin's theory provides a second way photographs trap the characters in Hong, but not in her. He writes that a camera embalms time. Now, embalming something could be beautiful, or not. What if instead of taking a photo of your sweet, sweet kickflip, you accidentally take a photo of a really lame kick flop, and all your friends post it on your Facebook wall on your birthday, and your big crush Greg thinks you're really lame, bro? That's some bad embalming. With any photo, you run the risk of preserving something not so good about yourself forever. Photographs form a specific relationship to time, both when you look back on them and at the moment you take them. In The Day He Arrives, a fan asks Seong-jun for a photo.
그러세요, 그럼. 예.
Everything in this moment seems claustrophobic. The wall, her camera, the zoom trap him like a moth under a glass. In the film, it seems like Seong-jun is granted the freedom to redo the same day over and over again, as it seems to repeat itself 3 times. But once a photo is taken, that moment is frozen, hence his terror. Perhaps he fears that his many past flaws will be preserved forever.
너는 이기적이야. 물어봐, 다들.
Once placed in the 4 corners of the photograph, he can't employ his usual strategy of running away. Meanwhile, in Christmas in August, the photos don't likewise trap the characters. They're allowed to breathe, just exist within the frame. The lens instead allows them to be the best version of themselves, obscuring rather than laying bare any flaws.
웃으면 안 돼요.
A third aspect of photography is waiting. This relates to the larger minimalist trend of dead time, most notable when a shot just hovers after a scene finishes, and you're forced to wait for the cut. When you take a photo, on film at least, you have to wait both for the photo to be taken and for it to develop. In Hong, characters often wait anxiously without resolution. They never seem to stop waiting. The scene or film just ends. In The Power of Gangwon Province, Sang-kwon decides to retake his picture for a job application, and we only see him as he is forced to wait twice. Never the moment the photo was taken or the moment he receives it. Thus, characters seem eternally stuck in obligation to a single future, unable to change their fate. So the characters are not only denied lack of closure from past trauma, but also from future worries. Their past becomes their future the past. They are stuck in cycles. Of course, in Christmas in August, even when we do see someone wait, the film makes sure this moment is not anxious. More importantly, we usually see the characters experience the moment they are waiting for, as the camera shutters click at exactly the right time. In fact, the entire film centers around Jung-won waiting for his own death, and when it finally happens, it is encapsulated in one of these well-timed moments. The final aspect of photography I'd like to talk about is their reproducibility. Each copied image is a repetition of a moment in time. Such repetition easily lends itself to symbolizing the postmodern malaise of undefined sameness, where nothing, not you, not your experience, not even your dog, is unique. Because nothing is unique. Of course, Christmas in August avoids this depressing prospect. The depicted photos all seem to only have one unique copy, and this photo, which the boys might want copies of, would, if copied, hold special significance for each of them. The repetitions would each be unique to their owners. This uniqueness holds true of the film in general, where each character seems to live a distinct life that progresses linearly to a certain end. And each moment is unrepeatable. Even the retelling of a story causes different reactions and has a palpably different meaning in each scenario. Meanwhile, Hong's films lean heavily into almost oppressive reproducibility, as moments in his films repeat themselves. Lines of dialogue,
우리 사람 되는 거 힘들어.
우리 사람 되는 거 어렵지만
힘들지만 우리 배우는 거 맙시다. 어?
entire days, or even people are doubled and tripled. His characters within and even across films seem stuck in cycles. They eat, they drink, they go on vacation, they have sex. They eat, they drink, they have sex, they go on vacation. They're stuck in repetitive cycles, living through photocopied lives. These repetitions give us a convenient place to move from how these films treat their characters to how they affect the audience. Scholar Michael A. Unger proposed that Hong's films have a very distinct effect on their audience through their repetitions, coining the term echo-parallelism to describe this process. Unger writes that repeated events encourage the audience to infuse the patterns with its own meaning. Moments in Hong films are like déjà vu. As we experience a repetition, the second, third, fourth instance of the repeated thing reminds us of the original thing that it echoes, or of the echo that it echoes, as we try to find meaning in these repetitions, whether or not Hong actually intended anything. Furthermore, as the films in Hong's oeuvre echo each other, we might seek out more and more Hong to try to decode his previous films with his newer work, stuck in a cycle of Hong. Even if we watch every single one of his films, which is a lot, we'd probably still be stuck, waiting for Hong to produce another work. Maybe one that's finally clear and emotionally satisfying? Knowing Hong, this is never going to happen. The clarity we chase in these repeated moments ultimately never comes, and the repetition just leaves us confused. Indeed, in Hong, there are just generally a lot of moments that leave the audience mystified, in want of some sort of significance. In the day he arrives, the very last thing we see is Jung-won's face in terror. Why is he so scared? My earlier interpretation was just a guess. I can't say for certain what exactly this moment means because we're denied any real closure. And Hong films are filled with denied closure. His movies just aren't satisfying, intentionally. We don't leave the theater being like, "Aw, what a nice movie." We leave it like, eh? Just like how the characters are denied closure from their past, Hong's audience is denied a clear catharsis of a resolved plot. This is unlike Christmas in August, where basically all of our questions are answered clearly and satisfyingly. But in Hong, we have to sit there and think about what the heck we just saw. And Unger suggests that in this process, we put ourselves into the film, as we make our own meanings of his weird mysteries and repetitions. Like the repeated cyclical messages from the lovers in Turning Gate, the film is in the audience and the audience is in the film, as the watched experience sits in our brains and as we fill the film with our projected meaning. But whether or not you agree that by reading meaning into a Hong film you somehow make it, it's undeniable that the films stick with you. After you watch something with explosions, robots, and elves, when you return to your everyday life, your memories of the film don't really hold sway on your day-to-day experience. Meanwhile, once you leave a Hong film, its realism seeps into your life as you also eat, go on vacation, procrastinate, and sometimes hate yourself a little bit. Hong's films function like strange photographs of everyday life. The same rings true of Christmas in August, but to a lesser extent. Overshadowing all these small, quiet moments is our knowledge and dread of Jung-won's impending death, which hopefully is a less common everyday experience. Though the film is, like Hong, all about the personal, it is framed by great tragedy and romance, and so invokes the sweeping emotions more typical of a Korean drama or a soap opera than of our everyday lives, and so it provides more of a fictional world which we can clearly exit once the film finishes. Rather than feeling oppressive, Hearst's minimalism feels more like a simple, pensive portrayal of an uncommon but still only personal, rather than national, tragedy. So these two directors explore personal time through minimalism, but they come to two very different depictions, and they affect the audience in very different ways. Through their minimalist style, the directors convey unique messages, stifling, healing, ruminating, in simplicity.